Musically Meditated.
Musically Meditated. Musically Meditated.
Welcome to episode 12 of Musically Meditated. I'm your host, Joe Riley. I'm here with Shretton. What's going on? We're at Green Door Studio, and I'm really pumped up tonight. We have a fellow podcaster in the building all the way from Crown Point. Alan, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming out. It's pretty cold out there, too, so...
Yeah, it was like north of the wall, so it felt like it was filming season 8 of Game of Thrones on my way here today.
Nice. My parents were watching Game of Thrones today.
Yeah, they got the whole marathon on.
Do they?
Yeah.
Nice.
My wife's knee-deep.
Knee-deep in it?
Yeah.
I've never watched that. I'm probably like one of the only people ever. I've never even watched one episode.
Yeah, you are the only one probably ever.
There's like 3 of you.
Okay, 3 of us? All right, cool.
Alan, first and last name, so we don't have to say it.
Yeah.
Alan Myszkowski, and that is last name M-Y-S-Z as in zebra, K-O-W-S-K-I.
Nice.
No problem.
Nice. And what's your podcast called, man?
Well, I've got 2.
Okay.
So I'm doing one that's more stream of consciousness, and it's really trying to give like an update of what's been going on with the company and a lot of what's been on my mind. That's called According to Alan. We record that one on Sundays, release it on Mondays. And then the one that we are kind of known for publicly is the Talk Local one. And that's when we bring in local guests of notoriety, whether it's head coach Dave Pishker from Andrain or small business owners. Like we've had the guys who just opened up the Provecho restaurant are opening it up in Crown Point on the Square. They were in last week. So that's the one that probably has the most notoriety. But and that one we record on Wednesday and then release on either Thursday or Friday, depending on our schedule from a social media standpoint.
Awesome. Yeah, that's Local 219, right?
Yeah, so that's my media company.
That's your media company, yeah. Nice. And what do you really want to achieve with your company?
From an achievement standpoint, I would probably say I'm really just kind of interested and curious in what people are doing from a local perspective. And so it's given me a chance to kind of build my network and really kind of reach out and kind of form that level of community that I'm hoping that more people like you guys are doing. It's like why I'm here, right? And why other podcasts kind of exist. So that's kind of my intention with it. From a backside of things, I do a lot of stuff. So the podcast thing is just one segment of what we do. We really rely a lot on video production. So it kind of all feeds one another, if that makes any sense.
It does. And that's your business, your main number one business is Local 219.
Yeah, so my LLC is Local Enterprises.
Okay.
Right? And the idea behind that is to be able to pick this thing up. We're starting in a market we love, right? This is my home, the region, right? But ideally, we're trying to like set up this digital media to be able to kind of pick it up and take it to other markets that are similar-minded. So right now it's Local 219. That's not to say in 5 years there's not going to be a Local 317 for Indy or a Local 414 for Milwaukee. You just don't know yet.
Right, but you're starting here because this is where you're from.
Yeah, man, and have got a lot of passion for it. We wear that flag proudly.
Yeah, so do we. Even here in Hobart, I think you guys kind of forget about us. But
it's funny, man. This is literally the first time. This is the second time I've been to downtown Hobart in 2 weeks. So ever. So like this is my first time really kind of checking it out, and it's dude really cool, man. The theater looks awesome. Love the little Main Street here. I'm sure it's got a lot of romanticism about it that you guys got to teach me the ways on.
Oh, we'll show you. We'll show you the way. But yeah, I think I don't know if Hobart if it doesn't get a lot of love because we beat everybody up so bad in football, like throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s. You know, so everybody's kind of got a grudge against us. But I don't know. Maybe it's just a weird Hobart insecurity that I have.
Yeah,
I don't know. Where did you go to high school again?
So grew up in Hammond, north of 30, in the Hessville area. Shout out to those peeps. And then from about high school on St. John, and then from my adult life, mainly Crown Point.
Crown Point. And that's where you're at now, right? Crown Point?
Yeah. Cool, I've been there for about 8 years.
All right. Awesome, man. Awesome. When I checked out your podcast, especially the video content, which is awesome, what I noticed right away was how you always had an album on display for every guest that you had.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really badass. And then where you're recording at, too, is your house, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw, band posters, and I saw, all of your vinyl collection and stuff. So that really, struck a chord with me. I was like, all right, this dude really likes music. And that's what we do here. We talk music with people, artists and whatnot, and I do music reviews. But that had an impression on me. And I think the one episode I was watching, you had some like Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers was one of the albums.
It's funny because I can think of the guest by the album now at this point.
Yeah, because I think that's a really good visual.
Yeah,
it really is. Like, it caught my eye, being a music dude. And when I first talked to you too, you said you had a very extensive vinyl collection, right?
Yeah, I mean, extensive, I guess that's subjective, but I would like to think that I'm doing more like of substance than just kind of just having records. So one of the things my life goals, I'm a collector of a lot of shit. So
Okay.
one of those things I like is I'm a huge fan of music, and I'm not afraid to experiment. And so that vinyl collection's based on the Rolling Stone top 500 albums of all time. So I'm trying to get them all.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's a mixture of everything,
Awesome. Did you get any hand-me-downs like from your parents or
Yeah,
friends or anything?
I think that's the way it starts, right? For
Right.
most people when they collect vinyl, is you kind of get handed down a record player that usually sucks, and you get your 15 to 20 albums that you're into that you may not even know you're into. I think in my case, it was 2 crates of records. So I know we had a first edition Abbey Road in there, which was cool. Right. But that was about it of substance, because there wasn't a lot of that stuff was beat up from the years. What got me into vinyl was a friend of mine. His name's Dan Shipman. His dad used to DJ, and he gave me 2 techniques, like the actual turntables to learn how to mix. So that was my introduction to it in high school when I was really getting into it. Newfound respect for DJs. That shit's hard as hell.
That's weird you said that, but keep going. Yeah.
Yeah,
keep
so
going.
that's insane. Like anybody who's ever tried to think that might look easy from a distance, you're in for a rude awakening. That is impossible. It's super hard. And so I started collecting a lot of hip hop albums around that. So that's around that time of The Life and Times of S. Carter.
Okay.
Right? What Jay-Z album is that? Is that the 4th one or 3rd
Yeah,
one?
we're talking like 03, 04?
Yeah, and it was earlier than that.
Was
That's
it?
like 97, 98.
Okay.
That's in that time period. It's right after Hard Knocks Life Volume 2 and right before Blueprint, right?
Okay. Yeah, I remember
So
Reasonable
that-
Doubt the most is first, and that was like 96, 97.
Yeah, it's good stuff on that.
Yeah, that was my favorite. But go ahead. But yeah. But
So that's when we used to take the trips to East Chicago to the Bomb Records
I
to
remember
go
the
pick
Bomb.
up
Damn,
that
that's
stuff,
a name.
dude. Yeah, I know, man. I know.
I
They used
forgot.
to,
Do you remember those commercials?
no,
Yeah, I
I
remember
would
the
love to see them
commercials.
though. Hopefully they're on
It
YouTube.
was always, what was that, WGCI, like Channel 29 or something? Like, remember they would show some local commercials? But yeah, I remember the Bomb. They had commercials.
Go in there,
It
you
was
get your
great.
Jinko jeans, your
Yeah.
Echo shirt.
I had Janko jeans.
Nice. We all
and
did.
Shred,
man.
I saw your post on Instagram. You had braids and you had a North Carolina shirt
The
on.
Coolio phase.
We all went through that. We all went
Damn
through
right,
that.
dude.
That was a byproduct of the movie Hard Target coming out and me being a huge Van Damme fan, so I grew my hair out. And then I didn't have patience to wait, so a friend of mine braided my hair, but also the braids, none of the hair was long enough, so I looked like Coolio.
Okay.
Exactly like
But-
Coolio.
but
I
that's-
need visual evidence of that. Sven.
That's crazy you say that about the turntables because my parents gave me all their old vinyl, it was just around. And I was going to school with this dude and he used to be a DJ and I wanted to try it. Just like, like you said, he gave me a mixer, an old Vistax mixer, and it was 2 Newmark turntables. And that's what I wanted to do was to DJ. But like you said, matching beats is not easy, and I think a lot of local DJs and DJs nowadays have gotten away from that, and it sucks because it was such a skill, and it was almost like its own instrument, because to match a beat, like you really had to dig through the crates and dig through albums, those old school DJs to do that, like whatever kind of music it was, like if it was a rave back then or drum and bass or even like a hip-hop DJ, to match those beats is like a talent and a technique on its own, and unfortunately I feel like it's dying a little bit.
Dead.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, EDM is kind of taking that place where that kind of house music at that time was kind of where it was in those mixing those albums, right? And plus, you had cassettes, so you could mix cassettes into the stuff you're actually mixing, which was cool.
Yeah.
And people would listen to the whole thing. Now it's like it's hard to. Well, I know you can make it digital now, but now with like the virtual DJ software, the beats per minute's kind of get like makes it so easy to do that anybody can practically do it. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. That's dead.
Yeah, it's dying. But I mean, I'm sure there's some dudes that still do it, and if
Yeah.
there are, like, kudos to them. But that's crazy. That's how I got into collecting vinyl. So I was able to get all my parents' old stuff, and then I've been buying records now probably since 02, 03, steadily. Just there's no rhyme or reason. I guess the only rhyme or reason why I do it and how I do it is if I really, really like the album, I just buy it. Like especially if it's like a new release to support the artist instead of just, downloading it. I'll actually buy it, So That's awesome, man. I
Well,
really like the vinyl.
The one thing I love about that medium in particular, and I don't know if you can speak for this, but there's certain albums that have really hit me that I never would have experienced from a different platform, different medium. And one of those is Abbey Road for sure, because it ends with "I Want You, She's So Heavy" on the first side, next side, and that's like a real heavy reverb, right? That's like a heavy metal like song for the Beatles, right? It kind of symbolizes that rainstorm, and then that's the end of side A, and then when you flip it over, it's "Here Comes the Sun," which is a completely different juxtaposition of what they just tried to do. So you don't really get that vibe on the CD, you know. And there's other albums that I can tell you like right now that I just like blew my mind hearing on vinyl. One of those, George Harrison's "All Things Must Pass." That one was crazy. And like out of them all, Bruce Springsteen's "Born to Run." I know that's crazy, but like I'm not a big Bruce fan. I never was a big Bruce fan, and I always like a buddy of mine always ingrained in my head that like it's the Adam Sandler version of Bruce, you know. And so it's always killed me. But "Born to Run" in particular, man, it's like you can really hear that band kind of come together and really match at a complex level the lyricism of what he was singing about. Yeah, no, "Born to Run."
It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I really like about vinyl, it has that nostalgic thing to it, to where you could touch it, you could feel it, you could smell it. You know, like even the artwork, like everything about it is an experience. And I remember being a kid, like thumbing through my parents' albums and like, you know, just the artwork itself. It like really had like, I don't know, it was very impactful. You know, like I just remember like old Black Sabbath stuff. Like, whoa, you know, like certain album covers, like the very first Sabbath album. It's just creepy. I don't know if you remember that off the top of your head.
It looks like he's like in some kind of like
it's like a lady or something, and like in a
in a field.
In a field, you know. I was freaked out on that shit. I'm like, I gotta listen to this. And you put it on, and it's Black Sabbath, the song, you know, self-titled song. Just it was like a horror movie. I was like freaked out, you know, like. But yeah,
well, it's funny you mentioned the artwork, because the artwork is now like, how many times can a band get you that big of a marketing piece? That you just can't. You don't get that nowadays. The CD covers are really small. Digitally, you get a thumbnail, you know, so you don't really get a chance to get to know that band. And the bands that really took the time to really focus on that artwork made it that much better.
And it's made a huge comeback. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but somebody mentioned like vinyl sales are at an all-time high, you know, and I think a lot of that has to do with the music nerds that like to touch and see it and appreciate the artwork and just experience the whole album, you know, like by a visual. And I love vinyl, so that's cool, man.
Yeah, I think my favorite part about the resurgence of vinyl is the ability to be a human-to-human conversation about music that you normally wouldn't be able to have digitally. I go into a record store at Crown Point all the time, and I end up being there. It's like a time suck for 2 hours.
Where's the record store at in Crown Point?
It's at the bottom of the courthouse. It's called the Vault.
The
Vault Antique Vinyl and like some other stuff, yeah.
I'll
But
have
it's
to check
cool,
that
man.
out.
It's cool, and like the selection there is all prime. It's
Really?
all, yeah, it's all choice stuff. It's nothing bullshit.
Yeah, I always went to S&J Records. It was in Highland. Now he's in Griffith. That was always like my record store. Do you remember Hegwish back in the day?
Never went, man.
Oh, okay. You remember Hegwish, Retton?
Used to drive by it all the time.
Okay.
It's a legend in the area, but
It
I've
is,
never
but
been.
it was great. Like there was the original one, and then there was one on Route 30, past the mall going east. Like, it was kind of across the street from Sports Mart or something like that. But I remember going there as a kid, and that's when CDs first came out. Remember, they were like $40 a pop, $50 a pop.
Like
but
warehouse music, $24.
Yeah,
a
warehouse
CD.
music.
Bullshit.
But my parents, I remember when my mom bought my dad like Led Zeppelin, the box set, like the greatest hits, and it was like the biggest thing in the world. He had like buddies come over and like listen to it, like, this is a CD, check it out. Like they just put all the records in the corner. And who would think that their son would be playing with them and checking them out, you know, 20-something years later.
So being a Hobart guy, you just made me think of something. Do you claim the mall?
No.
No, so that's outside of what you're at?
That's Ross Township.
Okay, all right. No, that's not Hobart. That doesn't even matter to you guys. It's not even your universe.
That was never Hobart.
Because that's one of those things like being, you know, south of 30. Everyone's like, oh, no, it's Hobart. It's like, I don't know. I like that. So I'm glad I got that question out.
An old school Hobart head would say, no, that ain't Hobart.
Okay.
Because if you live in like Barrington Ridge, like there's a cutoff line where they go to Maryville too. Like it's real weird in that area, like 51, like past, you know, going towards the mall, like 51 and 61st. Like that's all Maryville after the hospital. So
cool.
Yeah, man. But as far as vinyl though, are there any prized possessions that you have, like certain ones, like your favorites, like anything?
Yeah, I joke a lot about on my podcast about even like going into detail about this because I'm practically giving someone an inventory of the shit to steal, you know.
Okay.
But
Well, we won't do that.
I got the Ramones
Trademark.
First Press, which is like one of my favorites. It's got even like misspellings and shit on it. It's awesome.
Ramones, huh?
Yeah, I love that era of New York punk. It's like one of my favorite eras of music. From
impressive.
that Television, Marquee Moon, that album is like that
Yeah.
one's awesome. Even like extending itself to the Sex Pistols and Clash, all that stuff. Love it. But from there, I got the first edition Blood on the Tracks, which I love that album. And I got the first edition Beatles White Album too. That's a cool one. But a lot of it is just like that relationship you build with them, you know. And like I said, I mentioned the Bruce. I mentioned the other ones earlier, but like the Lou Reed Transformer
You got
album,
that,
that's
huh?
another one that's just like crazy awesome for vinyl. So I have a little bit of love for that one. That's a piece of me. And the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, man.
Yeah,
Bowie
it's
was like
classic,
another
too.
one that was just like I heard on that medium for the first time and just fell in love with it. So it's just like that medium lends itself to just being able to listen to entire albums and being able to kind of have that distance. Kind of like what I love about what you guys got your setup here is that it's not digital, which is really cool. Like a lot of what we do is like we've got boxes everywhere. We got the Logic Pro rocking. I love how old school the setup is here, man. It kind of reminds me of that kind of medium. You know, it's cool.
That medium, that old school too. This is analog, and
it's
analog
awesome, dude.
analog brings that warmth. You know, people don't realize that. Like old analog synthesizers, drum machines, even recording stuff. Seriously, like there's a whole nother market and nerd factor to just analog stuff in general. You know, like especially with electronic music, but analog brings that warmth.
It's so warm in here.
So warm in here. But it does, man. So
You know, it's a weird thing. I was going to ask you too. Do you buy a lot of new vinyl?
I do.
You do?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I've been dipping into it, and initially I started out just being like I really wanted to kind of get the old stuff.
Yeah.
And then like most recently, I've gotten like Pearl Jam. They do they do a bunch of like bootlegs and stuff. So I got the Pearl Jam Live at Soldier Field. That one just came into the mail. And then I got like Arcade Fire's Funeral. I got Fuji's The Score. So I've been trying to buy as more like modern ones. But I was just interested because most people kind of stick to like that early days of what it is, you know?
Yeah, but with the modern stuff, it sounds great, you know, and it's like when you said you had the first Ramones pressing, that's really rare, especially with punk, because that shit it was very limited, and then a lot of it's beat up, you know, like whenever I've tried to go and search for, you know, like old Black Flag or anything like that, it's really, really hard to find. Like I got a Minor Threat album, I found it at Permanent, it was called Permanent Records. They closed down in Chicago, but when I found that, I was like, oh my god, like it was a little bit beat up. It's like they put a sticker on it. Looks rough but plays well, you know. So finding an old Ramones one like that, that's impressive.
The Vault, man, they hooked me up with that one. I paid a good price for it.
Okay.
There's no doubt about it, but it was like one of those, it's just like, that's one of my bands.
Right.
You know? It's like that one, and then like the Clash London Calling. There's certain albums that I just can't live without, and that was one of those. Are like two of those.
And you have like an original do you know what version that is? Like
My London Calling?
Yeah.
No, that's a re-release.
Okay.
It's more, it's 180 gram or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a little thicker, but it's cool.
It's thick. Yeah. But yeah, the more modern, I mean, a lot of the vinyl I buy is modern because there's a lot of bands, like I said, if they put something out and I really like it, I'll buy it, you know, especially if I love the album. So
I've been listening to the podcast, and I got a question for you. What turns you on about music? What gets you going about it? Is it like from a live perspective to a studio thing? Like where's your track gonna go? Not to take the ship on this. That wasn't my intention.
No, that's cool.
I'm just interested, man, because when people are really into music, you don't meet a lot of people who are really into it. And so it's always like interesting to hear that story. Like what gets you into it?
I like the fact that I could either go back in time, it takes me somewhere back in time when I first heard it, or it could take me away from, you know, whatever's going on in life right now. You know, like that's what's really cool. Like that's what I like about music, you know? And I think a lot of it, it's like there's a time and a place for all different styles, you know? Like, so lifting weights, I want something aggressive or whatever my mindset is at that particular time. But I really like to relate it to certain times in my past and certain things in my future, you know, if that makes any sense. But that's what really, really pushes me.
Cool.
Like, that's why I really, really love it, you know.
So you're like Cusack and High Fidelity, and just like organizing all your records by
like
your
a creep.
your moments in your life.
Yeah, my moments, but that's what I like about it, man. Like, I don't know, it's just it's always been a big part of my life, like since I was little, you know. Like it's just my parents were into it. I think a lot of that has to do with how you were raised. You know, like my parents were
Sure.
always listening to something. My uncle was a drummer. My mom plays drums. My grandma played the organ. You know what I'm saying? So it was just, there was always something going on, and it always kind of represented a good time too. You know, like there's something about music that has a really cool party vibe, and just, you know, it just brings everybody together too. Like I mentioned to you, you know, like as far as podcasting goes, especially in the region, I feel that there should be no competition, and the best way to bring everybody together is through music, you know? So here you are, man. Here you are. And getting into that, are there any artists locally in the area that you would like to give a shout out or people should check out, you know, that are listening?
I'm the worst person ever to talk about that. My sound engineer, he's big into it, man.
Okay.
He loves a lot of that stuff. My entire experience with local bands is cover bands.
Okay.
When it comes to original music in this area, I don't know much about it. I know there's a lot of hip hop in there, and just recently, really, man, because of what we're doing, we're trying to create a lot of local music for a lot of our video production of what we're doing. So just recently, I've been kind of getting into some different artists. One in particular, I'd give a shout out to them, is Asteria.
Okay.
Because it's local and because it's original, and it's because it's somebody doing something different. It opened up my eyes to that vibe and that like mentality of trying to make it and what it takes to do that. So Asteria is probably the first one that's kind of opened it up for me.
Okay. What about the guy that you just had on with, I saw it on your Instagram, that was doing the graffiti?
Yeah, his name's MC Seizure. His real name's Gabriel Barajas. He's just like a super unique and talented person. So
Okay.
I got to know him through graffiti. He also skateboards. He plays bass in a death metal band, and he does hip hop too. And the hip hop I got from that, the Who's Revolution, they sound awesome. So I can't wait to hear more of that stuff. So I don't know, man. It's a cool time to be around this area right now. There's a lot of like really cool people from ages of 25 to 40, I would probably say, and there's outliers to that, right? So I'm not trying to put anybody in a hole, but you know, from a business standpoint, from a music standpoint, from a production standpoint, from a podcast standpoint, there's a lot of this like melting pot happening, which is really cool.
I think our generation, you know, we do a good job at that. We're a little bit better than our parents' generation, and definitely more so than the baby boomers. And I don't know about these younger millennials, but I think we're doing a great job.
Working at Lakeshore, man, we had a lot of interns that were millennials. We're kind of like, I'm 35, and I think people can start to like put me in that scope.
Yeah, I think
like
we're
the
early
late
millennials.
end of it, right?
Yeah.
Dude, those kids in their early 20s, they have their shit together more than like
do
our
they?
generation for sure, dude.
Oh, okay.
And they're more willing to adapt than we ever were. That's like a superhuman that's getting made at that level right now.
Oh, okay.
Just from what I've seen, I know there's people just sitting around playing Call of Duty all day too and getting high. But like the people that I've seen that I've been a part of, man, there's like the future's bright.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. What's your experience there at the? What was it? The
Lakeshore?
Yeah, Lakeshore.
So Lakeshore Public Media is a public media station nonprofit, and that was a PBS television station and an NPR radio station. My job was production services, so I was making commercials for people, and we were doing the video side of that things, and also I was producing a lot of content for the station, video-wise. And I was also, it's probably the craziest thing, is I was producing live sports.
Okay.
And that's an insane thing. So anytime you go live and you've got satellite trucks and you've got a crew of 30 people, and everyone's got to work in unison, that's insane. And I just jumped into that. Like, I didn't have any experience into it. They're like, here's the keys, don't screw this up. And so my first day was like, you know, you're in charge of 30 people.
All right.
And you just pray to God that you don't lose signal, you know? But yeah, that was kind of what I was doing there.
Cool.
Not to get too far off topic.
Yeah. No, very cool. Very cool. I know that you like Pearl Jam because we talked before.
Yeah.
You brought up an interesting thing too. Like, I was like, well, what's your 5 favorite grunge era bands? And you broke it down like there was like 5 different areas of alternative music. Like, do you remember that? Like, how'd you do that? Like you said, could you explain that a little bit? Like,
sure. So like the 90s kind of gets jumped into like alternative, right? That's what most people kind of do it. And grunge seems to be the one, probably the most popular of the forms of music from that era, that decade. So I think it's not, you know, it's normal for people to have that perception. For me, grunge really starts at like probably at the back end of Bleach, and I don't even know if I count Bleach because from Nirvana's standpoint, because that was late 80s and they didn't really hit at that point. I would probably say grunge starts with Smells Like Teen Spirit and Nevermind all the way until Cobain's death. And then all the bands that encompass that from that geographic region in particular, because that's where a lot of that music was coming from. Whether it's Sonic Youth, whether it's Soundgarden, whether it's Alice in Chains, whether it's Pearl Jam, they all kind of took a bite out of that, right? And then so you've had the outliers of that era. You had REM, right, from like more south. You had some other bands that were kind of doing some stuff, and like Stone Temple Pilots gets kind of thrown in there. But I think the interesting thing about that aspect is from like Cobain's death till about, I'd probably say the birth of that Limp Bizkit Korn, era.
Yeah.
It's from like, so what was that, 98?
Yeah, well,
90
Korn's first album came out in '94, believe it or not.
Yeah, but Limp Bizkit has the $dollar bill you all 2-1, but that one like had faith. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about when it became like mainstream, right? Where TRL, Carson Daly's talking about
90.
shit.
We'll say 97 to 99, 2000.
Yeah, and so there's that one little like sliver inside that too. So I've got to kind of, we're not talking hip hop,
right?
Because that's a whole nother world.
That's a whole other world. That's a whole nother world.
Yeah, so we're talking 94 to 97 is like that Stephen Malkmus, that Weezer, that Bush, the Smashing Pumpkins. You got a little bit of Incubus starting to kind of like their earlier stuff. It's just an interesting time. Like I think Live is in like the 93 era, so there's the one that kind of gets thrown into the grunge. But it's really about who was the leader and who had the championship belt and what that was influencing throughout the decade. And you can kind of see how that goes throughout the 90s. Yeah.
And who do you think holds that belt?
Nirvana.
Okay.
I think from 50 years from now they're going to be talking about that band.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm really happy to see Nirvana still, like a lot of kids are rocking their T-shirts, and there's a lot of love still for Kurt Cobain and Nirvana as an influence. So I'm happy to see that, because that was a really, really big impact in my life. I had a guest on, it was like episode 9, Justin Wallace, and I mentioned like when Kurt died, like I remember how he was reacting, and we were in like 4th grade. Like I remember like seriously like getting Nirvana albums and imports and like when I was like 9 and 10. That's pretty crazy.
Imports. Like you had to go to the CD compact trading post.
Yeah, remember that
pay
place?
$60 for a live album.
That was the best place to go. Remember the T-shirts?
Oh yeah, you're talking about the one in like what is that, Maryville or Hobart? I don't even know what the hell that was.
That's almost Crown Point. That's almost your neck of the woods. That's by GFS. GFS Foods. Come on, man.
R.I.P. to the CD compact trading post.
Yeah. But back to the grunge bands. My big 5 are Nirvana. It's Nirvana. These are my favorite. Nirvana number 1, Alice in Chains 2, Soundgarden 3, STP 4. Sorry, dude, Pearl Jam 5.
Dude, that's one of those bands that I've grown up. So it's my favorite live band ever. I've seen them 30 times.
Yeah.
I've been in so many conversations where people have that opinion about them and then aren't afraid to tell me how bad they suck. That it's like I know what that band meant to me, and it's all good if you don't.
Oh yeah,
really care
it's
about
all
it,
subjective. Yeah, I mean that's the best thing about music. I really liked Pearl Jam up to Vitalogy, and then after that they just kind of fell off, in my opinion. And we talked before. You said you really started to dig them after that.
Yeah.
And what albums should I check out, or Shretton or any of the listeners that maybe might have the same opinion? Because I think that opinion might be with a lot of the metalhead types. That like the heavier sound. Pearl Jam went away from that.
I think you have to go ahead.
I like Eddie Vedder's Ukulele album.
That's a good one too, man. So I think to understand Pearl Jam post Vitalogy, you have to understand context of the band.
Okay.
Right? So you got Vitalogy, which is around 94, right? 95, that era. And then from that point, Eddie Vedder's having a super hard time when it comes to understanding his fame. Right, so he's rebelling against the machine.
What, when he sings like "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" at Wrigley?
Well, he wasn't doing that then.
I'm just
yeah.
You're a Sox fan.
He's a different. Okay, no,
right,
dude. That's been the hardest part about being a Pearl Jam fan is the Cubs shit recently. It's been the hardest part, dude. And like you go see him when he plays the song, and you're like, damn. It's like I looked at my buddy. I'm like, dude, this would be so much more fun if I was a Cub fan. It'd be great. But so Eddie's having a hard time when it comes to like I'm a biographer, but. He's having a hard time when it comes to the fame aspect of it. And so he's rebelling against the machine. They're going against Ticketmaster at this point. And so there's a real like focus on not being popular.
That's cool.
So they're literally not doing interviews. They're not doing press. They're doing their own thing at a whole point. And it's at the same time where I think it was where like Vedder, they win like best rock album of the year in the Grammys. I think it might have even been Vitalogy. And Vedder gets up there and is like, this means nothing to us. This art form, who gives a shit about an award? So there's a real backlash publicly coming against that band from a media standpoint and everything else. So
never knew that. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's where kind of like, that's where No Code kind of like a lot of people don't get it, but it's meant to be experimental. And then they do another one, Yield, right behind that. That's a major, like, high topic stuff. Very, very conceptual. A lot of stuff when it comes to like religious aspects, to beliefs, to being a human being, like all these crazy things. Then they really fall off, and so that's where even like the diehard Pearl Jam fans would tell you it's the tough era to be a fan because
really jam band. Or
I wish it was jam band, dude. It's just not that great of music.
Okay,
so it's like you've got Binaural, who's like probably an underappreciated album in the history of them. But then you've got like Riot Act, which was just like decent at the time. It doesn't hold up well over time. And then you've got their rebirth of like Avocado and Lightning Bolt and Backspacer and those kind of albums, which have like songs or two. If you see Pearl Jam live, you're going to probably get the songs that work live from those albums, but you're not getting those albums very rarely. I think in this last tour they played a couple of those albums front to back. But it's an interesting band, man, and a lot of people don't get that side of it,
Okay.
And so that's one of the reasons I love that band so much. Is Eddie Vedder to me is like one of those guys that has always been a moral compass in the back of my mind because he's so authentic. I don't know if I can say that right now because he's changing too, right? Because fame deals with people in a different way, right? And so when you see New Year's Eve and he's like taking a picture with Bill Maher and David Spade, it's like, that's not the Eddie Vedder I grew to love. That's not my hero. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because that dude was always willing to tell people what the fuck. He's not that guy anymore.
Okay.
So I don't know. Or he might be, man. Trump just got elected. He hasn't been on tour yet. He might go crazy on that stuff too. But it's a different band. And there was a time there where it was a little bit like you weren't sure what you were going to see.
Okay. What I talked about this with a friend of mine right when Chris Cornell died. Eddie Vedder, like out of the top 5, like I said, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, STP, then Pearl Jam. He's the singer that's still alive, and that's really crazy. And I take my hat off to him. Like I don't really know if he had any demons as far as drug and alcohol abuse goes, or what. You might know a little bit more about that, but he's the only one that's still alive, and that's really, really sad.
It's nothing public that I could tell you. I know he
Right.
smokes weed, and I know he drinks. He drinks at every concert, at least from what he tells us. But at the same time, like I think that we talked about this on the phone a couple nights ago, that they're the one band who rebelled against being stereotyped into that grunge era. It's the one band who did that. Everyone else kind of accepted it. And so I don't think that's on accident. I think that if more people would have been artistic, and I think Cobain dealt with it in the exact opposite way.
Yeah.
He kind of, but heroin doesn't help that, It kind of
And
isolates
crazy,
you.
and
Crazy
Courtney Love didn't help anything.
Yeah, and that's just a feeding frenzy, right?
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, he was like the one guy being artistic and holding on to it, and they were doing it down the opposite end of it. So everything that got kind of caught in. Like, I've seen Soundgarden at Lolla, so they were sick. I've seen Cornell solo. And at Pearl Jam 20, Cornell came out and did like the Temple of the Dog album with Pearl Jam. So
Yeah,
I got
that's
to hear Hunger
classic.
Strike with Vedder and
Cool.
Cornell, which to me is like probably one of the songs of the 90s. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh yeah, that's
From a rock side of
classic.
things, dude?
Yeah,
I mean,
man,
that's it.
Classic.
I wouldn't say like maybe alive from a Pearl Jam aspect, but like from that essence, man, that's like, to me, that's like the flag of the 90s is that song.
Yeah, both. I mean, I remember Soundgarden a little bit more. Like as a kid, I remember Soundgarden before Pearl Jam, but then when they collab, that collab came out. I don't remember what was before exactly, but that's the first time I heard Eddie Vedder because I know him and Chris were trading off vocals, but it made an impression. And their first 2 albums, man, are great. Pearl Jam's first 2. Like when I was a kid, we were all bumping and jamming those. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's all good, man.
Temple of the Dog is, what's the one song? Heaven, something. I know.
Say Hello to Heaven.
Say Hello to Heaven. Yeah,
Yeah.
when Chris passed away, like I just put that on and listened to that, and I was like, damn.
Yeah, we lost a good one on that one, man.
Yeah.
That last year, man. Bowie, Petty, Cornell. Those are some solid ones, dude.
Yeah, and I think the common denominator here, as far as Eddie goes, and not dying, heroin is the big problem. I mean, I know Chris was apparently abusing pills when he died, and maybe drinking, but Kurt obviously he had a problem, and
Lane Staley.
Yeah, I mean they found him like maybe 2 or 3 weeks after he OD'd.
Yeah, it's brutal, man.
And that had a big impact on me too. Like I loved Lane Staley. Do you remember Mad Season?
Yeah,
That was good stuff.
McCready.
Too. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's probably the most underrated member of Pearl Jam. I think maybe he'll get his due eventually as a guitarist, but the dude's just insane.
Okay.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
If you could see any band at the height of their era from like when they're like at their peak, right? Because one of my favorite things about seeing live music is seeing the band when it's at like their height of popularity and the music's the best. So like, who would you put in that category?
There's a few bands, but you just want one.
No, give me a couple, man.
Well, as cliche as what we're talking about, definitely Nirvana. I would say Nirvana right when Nevermind came out. I know they came through Chicago. I've read stuff about it. Like they were at the Metro. Like Nirvana at the Metro when Nevermind came out would have been really, really cool.
Because you got Bleach and you've got Nevermind.
Right. Bleach is my favorite album by them.
Yeah, that's a sick one.
You know, but just right, I mean, maybe right when they blew up or maybe a little bit before, but in that environment at the Metro is my favorite place to see a show in Chicago because it's so small and it's very, very intimate. Like Nirvana right when that was happening, like before all the drugs and the fame and the bullshit with Kurt, I think that would be really, really cool.
That would have been cool.
That would have been the shit. I haven't met anyone, you know, like I've asked, have you ever seen Nirvana live? And never.
The vinyl shop has 2 tickets from that Metro show framed.
What year was that show?
Shit.
Do you remember?
No, not
92, probably like 91,
around
92.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
They have that there?
Yeah, there's 2 tickets. They're both from that Metro show, and they're both framed, and it just tells you like what it's from in that time period.
Cool. Another band I would really like to see in their prime would be Black Flag, like right when Henry Rollins joined.
Another underrated band, man.
Yeah, because actually Chris Novoselic and Kurt Cobain, their first concert was a Black Flag show.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. You know, I mean, I heard about Black Flag through Nirvana. Like, you know, when you really love a band as a kid and you start looking for their influences and whatnot, like that's how I heard about Black Flag. But Black Flag, when Rollins joined, you know, the Damaged album or maybe Loose Nut, I would really, really like to check them out. Like somewhere in L.A., you know, would have been badass because when they were performing, there would be cops, there would be riots. Like cops would not let them perform at some places, and there was just always something chaotic from what I've read. You know, like Get in the Van was a book by Henry Rollins where he just had like his diary and just wrote down all of his experiences when he was in a van touring with Black Flag, and it was really cool. So, you know, I love Henry, I love Greg Ginn, or Ginn, however you want to say his last name, the guitarist, and that would have just been an awesome band to see like at their peak. Another one, too, as far as punk or hardcore goes, the Misfits, like the original lineup when Danzig was singing. I got to see him at Riot Fest a few years ago.
So that's why you went.
Yeah, well, there was a ton of bands that I liked at that. That was a really good lineup. But, you know, some early Misfits in a small place like in New York, you know, or like the CBGB, like something of that era. And probably Bad Brains, too, because I heard they were the most energetic, craziest band to see live. Like a bomb went off. Do you know much about the Bad Brains?
No, not much.
Okay,
man.
yeah. They're like the first hardcore band ever from DC. Yeah. You got to check out Bad Brains.
I'll check them out, dude.
Yeah, so those are the 4. How about yourself?
Oof.
I got to throw it back at you.
I gotta see Bowie during the Ziggy Stardust because like having him like with all that makeup and shit and like there's no way he's playing huge venues at that point. That's got to be insane. It's like seeing an alien up on the stage, you know. I'd put him in there. I'd put the Rolling Stones probably on the Exile of Main Street side of things, tour wise.
What year did that come out? Was that 70s era Stones?
Early 70s, pre-75.
That's my favorite era Stones.
So that's you've got
Goathead
Let It
Soup.
Bleed, Goathead Soup. You've got that one bullshit that they made from in response to Sgt. Pepper's. I think it's called Devil's Majesty or whatever. That doesn't count. And then Sticky Fingers, Let It Bleed, and then Exile. It's like those 3 are crazy.
Dude, the best. I always heard that the Stones sucked live, though. Like anyone I ever talked to, not to knock the Stones, I love them, but they weren't.
Yeah,
they weren't known
to
be the best, best live sounding band. Like they did a lot of drugs and drank a lot too. So
yeah,
I mean Keith Richards is like a walking. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know how he's alive. Dude.
He's the man. But go ahead.
Late Otis Redding.
Nice.
Like that dude, from everything I've heard from that guy, man, and I love his music. It's like that dude was just a force to be reckoned with live too. So I would have loved to have seen that. I think an interesting one, and I don't care about the music at all. My buddy Martin's gonna give me shit about it, but I think seeing Kiss the first time when they put all that shit together would have been insane because that's like a completely different experience. that you can't replicate that, right?
No, I agree. Kiss in the beginning would have been bad.
Yeah, like when you don't know what to expect and that shit's hitting you, that's insane.
The whole show experience. Like, I don't think they're the best musicians, but
And I'm not even a fan of the music. I don't care at all.
yeah, but that would have been cool. That's a good choice for sure.
Just because live, it's insane. I would have loved to have seen like the Wall Floyd too, like that era would have been really cool. But yeah, no, I can probably. I love the height conversation. Like even with like when Wu-Tang's first album comes out, like I couldn't only imagine what that live show was like. You got 30 dudes on the stage, all taking turns with the mic, dude. Like, what do you even do with that?
Rage Against the Machine, Wu-Tang. That was a good show.
That happened.
Yeah,
that's
happened.
real.
Yeah, that happened.
So I got a crazy story about Rage. I went to Lala, and I love Rage. Right, Rage is fun. And I saw they were headlining Lala, and I'm sitting there, and they just start playing. Right, they're doing their thing, and I never realized the amount of like herd behavior and how influential that is until I saw Rage Against the Machine. Like I'm in there, I'm indifferent, dude. I've had beers all day, I don't care. I'm out there with my shorts and my tank top on, like every normal human being. By the end of that thing, dude, I'm ready to flip cars and start shit on fire.
Yeah,
and I didn't even know that, man. It's like the herd behavior of that band, and the power of that band is insane and second to none from what I've seen. It's just like literally you can just turn an entire crowd on its head.
Remember you asked me earlier, like what really does it for me musically, especially live when it's aggressive music like that. There's something tribal about it almost. Like it really, really moves me. Like you forget. It's like watching a good movie or whatever you're into. You forget about your problems or whatever the fuck's going on. And there's something in that aggressive music that takes over, like you get into it. Like you just said, like it doesn't. Nothing else matters. Like you're just going to express yourself however you can in any way you can, which is usually aggressive when it comes to heavier stuff. But that's what I really like. So that's cool.
So you're a big Metallica guy?
I love Metallica, yeah.
The only time I've ever been able to feel that vibe from them is Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, my favorite album is Master of Puppets.
Okay.
But I do love Ride the Lightning. Like, they were my first really heavy metal band that I got into. I don't really listen to them that much anymore. I'll go back and check them out. They're one band, like I've seen a ton of shows, especially heavier stuff. They're the one band that I haven't checked out yet live. I don't know why. I mean, I remember they came last year, but the tickets were a little bit pricey for like, do I like them that much? Like $1.50 a pop or something.
I've seen them 3 times.
Really?
Yeah, underwhelming for me. I'm sorry, but for me, it was underwhelming. I know people that love the music, and like for me, it's like I have a hard time getting over like the background. The Lars taking on Napster, even though if he was right, he's just
he's such a douchebag. Just say it.
Yeah,
Lars is a douchebag.
Dude, that documentary that came out with like him and like they're just like going at it on each other was not a good look for that band, man. It just wasn't, and they just learned how to just be such like capitalists.
Yeah.
Does the music even matter anymore to those guys? I have no idea.
Yeah, Cliff Burton was like a huge influence for me. Like I play bass, and when I saw that dude play bass, like watching Cliff 'em all on VHS as a kid, I was like, I got to get a bass guitar. I want to be Cliff Burton, and there was this cool shirt. I saw this shirt online. It had Cliff Burton and Lars together, and then just on the top it said it should have been Lars. Isn't that terrible?
I've seen that shirt. That's dark.
I need that shirt. I need that shirt.
They would have been at their height. They would have been one of the 2 bands that I'd like to see. I want to see an arena. I would love to see an arena band. It would have been either Metallica at their height when they had those huge shows, or AC/DC at their height.
Dude.
I drove past Wrigley Field, I think 2 or 3 summers ago, when they did one of their shows before Axl Rose jumped in. Right. He's a new lead singer, right?
Yeah.
Is he? I didn't know that.
Well, at least for that tour.
Okay.
And
I was just continuing.
I was just driving by Wrigley Field and hearing just any one of the songs. I don't even know which song it was. I just wanted to park my car and just walk out. There's such a strong energy. I saw a YouTube video. It was in high def of one of their concerts in Argentina at one of the other arenas. And the energy that they put out was just insane. That I would have loved to be in the middle of a crowd, just sweaty and jumping around, like you said, in that herd mentality, just acting like a maniac with that full energy of the concert would have been amazing.
Oh yeah.
I hear about those like European shows that like they don't even sing along to the songs; they sing along to the guitar.
Really?
Swear to God, yeah, because they don't know the lyrics. They don't. It means nothing to them. Yeah. Is that it? Is that all you got for that? Because who else you got? You got Metallica and AC/DC?
That's my 2. All the bands that I like to see, I could still see.
You know who I'd really like to see as a performer? Not to cut you off, but just real quick, Miles Davis.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Miles Davis like in between My Kind of Blue and like Bitches Brew. Like that era, like Bitches Brew, some crazy stuff, but he was as he called himself, the coolest motherfucker on the planet. So I would really would have liked to have been able to see Miles Davis.
Have you guys ever watched those? They're the infomercials, and I think Smokey Robinson or something does the infomercials for the Time like DVD sets when they used to do the concerts in the 60s and the 70s and possibly early 80s in front of like, it was like a sitcom studio, and they do these concerts, and it was all the bands from back then, or I would say singers from back then, because it was mostly vocalists that were mainstream popular, and most of them were ugly, but this is the first time you see them on TV, but they're all amazing vocalists. I would have loved to just have spent a couple summers just getting to see every single person that came out there to sing. That would be also if I had a time.
So who's the ugly singers you're talking about? Because like
I don't know. I'm not. If you listen to this podcast, when Joe goes, "What do you think, Stetson?" Then it's like the way that a kid reacts in class when they didn't do their homework or didn't do the book report and try to play it off. That's the energy that I put out. So I know
cool.
My brother listens to the podcast every week, and he's like, "Joe's got to stop asking you what you think."
Never.
I'm like, I try. I dance a little bit, but
Kind of Blue, man. That's you listen to that, Stratton? Kind of Blue?
No.
Miles Davis? Oh, dude, it's the best study
John
album of all
Coltrane's on
time,
that
man.
too.
Is he?
Yeah, John Coltrane's on that album. A lot of
Love
people don't
Supreme's
know
another
that.
one,
Love
dude.
Supreme, I need that on vinyl. I've been seeing that new pressings of that. It's like every time I'm digging, I'm like, oh God, I got to buy this, but I haven't yet.
I have both of those.
Do you?
Yeah.
You have like, do you remember what version it is? Like what pressing?
Oh no, like the most
newer
recent
ones?
Yeah, man. I'm not gonna go spend that kind of money anymore on that.
I had a chance to get My Kind of Blues second press. I wonder if it's still available, but it was through my dude at S&J Records in Griffith, and I just didn't do it. I don't remember the price, but I should go back tomorrow now that it's floating in my head. But
Yeah, man.
those are great jazz albums, dude.
Oh yeah,
Those two albums are the shit. But Bitches Brew is probably my favorite. It's crazy, but you ever listen to that one?
I've
by Miles
listened to
Davis?
it. It's one of those I've listened to a couple times, but never really like spun it 10 to kind of get it. You know,
I don't know if you can get it necessarily.
really, it's just an ungettable album.
It's just crazy. So it's a lot of noises, a lot of soundscapes. It's just like a bad acid trip, really.
So who like would you guys want to see that you guys haven't seen?
Metallica's there because I got to get him. I got to get him in my back pocket. I don't know. That's a hard one. Like that are still performing right now.
Yeah.
Metallica off the top of my head. That's all I could really. I don't know, I've been to so many shows. How about you? Throw it back at you.
I'd like to see U2, and I'm not a big fan of U2, but they've been around for so long they got to be killing it right live. I'd like to see Bruce. I'd like to check that out.
You and Bruce, dude.
I know, dude.
I agree. I'm not a Bruce Springsteen fan, but I would like to see one of his concerts because I want to see those old men do a 4-hour show. I want to see how they can do it because no matter what show you go to, it's about 3 hours long with the opening band.
Yeah.
Reasonable. These guys just do marathons.
Marathons, dude.
And if you ever watch if you ever watch live footage of a Bruce Springsteen concert, they don't stop. They're like machines.
Just sweat.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. They do a lot of back-to-back stuff. That's probably planned because one dude's gonna fall. Why don't you
I
do
didn't
a
know that he
back-to-back?
still did shit.
Yeah, he's
Bruce?
Yeah, I had no idea.
Oh, dude. Yeah, he does. He probably does 20 to 30 date tours.
Does he really?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Does he have like new material that comes out or?
Yeah, and Rolling Stone always makes it the best of the year. No matter what it is, man, it's insane.
Well, how much is Bruce paying Rolling Stone? No, it's just
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I really want to see Limp Bizkit. No, like fuck that.
I saw them back in the day
I almost high-fived you.
at Family Values tour. They're all right.
Family Values.
Do you remember that shit?
Yeah, dude, that's a long
Korn?
time ago. Like, remember the second Woodstock, or like
Yeah.
whatever, like turned into like
Yeah.
just raping people in bathrooms
yeah.
and fire
It's
for some
terrible.
reason.
When they played "Give Me Something to Break," it got crazy. Everybody lost their mind. He was.
I remember.
Go ahead.
I remember MTV had all the cameras set up, and it was supposed to be one of the most amazing events. And it was the first time that they fully televised, cameras everywhere. And within a day or two, that's all they were talking about was all the awful, awful things that were happening.
Yeah.
People, Molotov cocktails, women being assaulted left and right, just
Crazy.
insanity.
99 was crazy. I had a
Yeah.
lot of fun. But
You know, it'd be a sick one too. I know it's impossible to see now. Beastie Boys. I would have loved
Yeah,
to have seen
that would've
them,
been
man.
awesome.
I got
Yes.
so much more respect for them the older I get that like I would have loved to have seen
yeah,
them.
rest
too.
in peace, MCA. Right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, he was awesome. You told me too. You've been to every Lollapalooza since '98. That's really crazy.
No, not 98.
What
Dude,
year?
It's like 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, 07.
'07.
Yeah.
So that's 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've seen pretty much everybody from this era, roughly. And Beastie Boys were supposed to headline, but then that dude got sick.
Yeah.
So the yeahs had to kind of jump in for him, which is another. I don't mind them, but it's not the Beastie Boys.
Who's the best band that you ever watched perform at Lolla?
That's tough, dude.
Okay.
That's
The
a
Cure.
tough one. The Cure.
I love
No,
The Cure,
I missed out
man.
on The Cure. I missed out on them.
Don't hate on The Cure. You know what my favorite, like when it's this cold outside, I could do a podcast on this album, but when it's this cold and nasty out, it's The Cure Pornography. If you've never heard that album, everybody should listen to that.
That's a winter album?
Oh man, it's dark. It's dark. And it just reminds me of winter and just darkness, dude.
Okay. Okay.
Just check it out. Sometimes you gotta dive deep into something a little bit more, garbage and dark.
I'm with you, man.
It's nothing poppy at all. Like that's their third release, and it's a dark album, dude. You got to check out Cure Pornography.
Okay, I'll check
Good
it
stuff,
out.
good stuff.
The two albums that come to mind for winter is Not a Surf, Let Go. Have you guys ever heard that album?
I remember Not a Surf, but I don't remember that album.
Dude, it's crazy. And I know this is, again, not going to be a popular one, but a Coldplay, Rush Blood to the Head. I don't know if it does that era what I was going on. Like they didn't get called out by Paul Rudd on the 40-year-old virgin at that time yet, so they were still cool.
Yeah, right.
But that was
hate
like
Coldplay.
You like what you like.
I
I
don't
don't fuck
mind
with Coldplay.
No.
I gotta admit.
Parachutes. I love that album still.
Okay.
I put that shit on right now.
Okay.
Don't even hesitate. But going back to the Lollapalooza conversation, I think my favorite show that I've seen from Lolla was an after show, and it was Cage the Elephant, and like at the Riv. And if you've never seen them, man, that's a band,
I've heard some really good things. I have some indie rock buddies that love them.
dude. Nothing. I mean, from like a modern standpoint, you just don't see that kind of energy, and you don't see a lead singer with so much just. When you watch him up there, man, you know what people were feeling like when they saw Jagger.
Okay.
Like he owns it, dude. It's unlike anything else.
That's a bold statement.
It's the only comp I can give. But like,
Okay.
dude, the music's sick.
Yeah, the Rib's a good place to see a show too.
Oh yeah, it's not my favorite. What's your favorite one out of the
Like
Chicago?
I said, the Metro.
Metro's your favorite.
Metro's number one, and then Riv would be two. Okay.
Talia Hall.
Talia Hall. Oh, I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me. That's
I don't think I've ever seen a show there.
that's the place to go now. That's the
Really?
place to go. Yeah, it's in Pilsen. It's the shit. I just went there and saw a group called Mets. It was a good time. You got to
Yeah.
go to the Talia Hall.
Who plays there outside of the Mets?
Not the
Not
baseball
the Mets?
team. No,
Mets.
just Mets. METZ. It's kind of more of a hard rock, punk kind of vibe.
Cool.
Little bit. It's smaller. I would say it's the same as Reggie's. You ever been to Reggie's Rock Club?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's got an old opera ballroom style, like couple dudes or three people, different business owners. They bought it. It was built in like the 1850s, like an old theater opera house.
Cool.
And they redid it, and it's when you walk in, you walk up these really cool like staircase. Then they had Pacifico Tall Boy 20 ounces for like $5. I was really impressed with that.
Nice.
I really like Pacifico, but yeah, everything about that place is the shit. You got to go check it out.
I just saw Brand New at the Aragon.
Really, I love Brand New.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship. I love the studio. I just haven't seen them like be great live yet. And my buddy like tells me all the time how great they are live. And every time I don't go, they're playing like the greatest show in the history of the world. And I keep missing it. But Tall Boy Bud Light, $14. That's what the world's coming to, dude.
Shoot me.
Yeah.
I saw him twice last year.
Really?
Yeah. Saw him it was on their regular tour. It was in Michigan. It was after the Chicago show. And I had really great seats, and it was a good time. And then I saw him at Riot Fest, and if you performed at Riot Fest on the main stage, the sound just sucked.
Damn, man. Lala has a stage like that too.
Do they?
No matter who it is up there, man, it's gonna suck.
I love Brand New. Did you like the new album?
And it was average for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
I when I think of Brand New, I think of the one album in particular. It's the what
The
is
Devil
that?
and God. Are
That's the
Raging
one,
Inside Us,
dude.
or
I mean,
Inside Me?
from the get, dude. That album's sick.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece, dude. I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
100%.
love that one, man.
It has a good tug of war of happiness and sadness, and just it's a really good one for me personally. Like if I've ever lost a loved one, like that one's helped me get through it. Like the grieving. It's a big grieving album for me.
Yeah.
That's personal, but certain music does that.
Hell yeah, man, you need
helps
that.
get
That's what it's
through.
for, dude.
That's what it's for, and a lot of the lyrical content with that too. I mean, if you dig into it, I know that they all had lost. I think they lost like 4 of their friends while making that. Like they didn't go into the studio wanting to write something as I don't want to say dark, but as personal maybe. And they had all like like a grandparent, like a couple best friends in a car crash or something like that. That album's pretty deep.
Yeah, that lead singer is like he's definitely conflicted.
There's
shit going on with that dude, man. There's times I've seen them and he doesn't even want to be there, and there's other times he puts on a great show, man. I don't know, but I'm attracted to that. I mean, as an artist, I appreciate the authenticity. It's just every time I've seen him, he just hasn't. I want to see him the one day they bring it.
He's very like I don't know. He's to himself. I mean, he got in some trouble this year too. Did you hear about any of that?
No, what happened?
He was doing some goofy sex shit. It was with like underage girls, and
Oh shit, man.
he was sending them emails and video footage, doing some weird shit.
Oh.
And he openly apologized for it. Back to brand new. What didn't you like about him live at the Aragon? What was missing?
Well, I'm a big fan of like set lists, and I think it takes a real craft and an art to kind of be able to create these waves of momentum at the right times and to be able to slow it down. It's kind of like it's a real pace, right? It's a give and take to the audience. I felt like they had they came out with 6 songs and just slayed it. They had the audience by the balls, and then they just like went into 3 to 5 new songs and slower songs that just took the air out of the place, and they never were able to rebound.
Okay.
And I don't know, for the life of me, I don't understand this, like, we're going to sit back on the final song of the night and we're going to play an acoustic song. That makes no sense to me. When you're a hard rock band, I don't get that.
Okay. That's how they ended it with an
That's how they
acoustic
ended
song?
it. And it's like it's like a B-side that they don't really play that often, so everyone was kind of jazzed about it. But from a guy who's just wanted to kind of see a good show, it didn't resonate, dude. And I'm sure there's going to be people really pissed off at me about saying that because Brand New's got a fan base, man.
Yeah,
That's
do.
one band that has a fan base.
Yeah, they have a cult
love
following.
'em. Yeah.
And kind of like the Deftones, I got to bring them up. I told you I was a huge fan.
Yeah.
You said that you saw them live a few times, right?
Yeah, I've seen them a few times, yeah.
Okay. And what was the one song that you really liked? I think it was Be Quiet and Drive.
Be Quiet and Drive is my favorite Deftones song of all time.
But the live performance that you saw, like, that wasn't it that song that you really...
Yeah, well, I've seen the couple times I've seen them. Like you don't know what to expect because they are like they're hard rock, right? And so a lot of it comes down to the showmanship of the show. So when they opened, it was at the House of Blues. Couldn't even tell you who opened at this point. That was like 20 years ago. It was after the White Pony album. And he came out, dude, Chino, and all his fame and like 50 pounds overweight doing his thing. But he's up there on the monitor, man, and he's got like the Jesus hands laid out, and it's like that song kicks in, and then like it's like you got the flashing lights going in the background, and it was just like, oh, you couldn't really see him, but you could just see his like, his shadow or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just a sick opening to the show,
Yeah.
and so they just carried it on through that, man. And they were good. I never really vibed with them once they kind of fell out of the how you fell out with Pearl Jam Vitalogy.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with them. Like I fell out once they fell out of the public sphere.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Like
I don't have
after
an
White
opinion.
Pony, you're kind of like, what happened to these dudes?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they're a fun band to see live. That particular era, like you're a fanboy of Pearl Jam, I am of Deftones. That was their rough times. Like they all were overweight. I think they were doing a lot of drugs and a lot of drinking. And those particular shows, like they weren't the best, but they always brought it, So it's cool, man.
So what's the best shows you've seen then? Like give me I know it's hard. Like you don't have to give me a number one,
right.
but just like at least a group.
Speaking of, I got to stick with the Deftones. I saw the Deftones at the Metro in 2003. It was when Self-Titled came out, so that's the album after White Pony. My friend actually, Justin Wallace, he's on episode 9. He stayed the night in Wrigleyville on a bench to get the tickets because Deftones were really, really big on a commercial level too because White Pony was so huge. So this was right after.
Huge,
this is like the summer of 2003. So he literally he slept on a park bench to get the tickets because the Metro's so small. And
I know that's crazy to hear for people now that would be such a big show, but like the same thing, like Incubus and them at the same time were just insane.
Back to School tour, I was at that.
Cool.
It was awesome.
Dude, both those bands were on top of the world.
Yeah, they were. But that show, just something about it at the Metro, like I just love that place, and it's so small, and the line was huge. I think they played like a 23 or 24 song set list. And the Metro turned the lights on. I think this is why it made such an impression on me. They turn the lights on. I don't know if people know this, but when they turn the lights on at a venue like that, that means your fucking time's over, and now
You're past curfew.
Now we're charging you. So they turned the lights on for about 3 songs, and it was so packed and crazy in there. I wasn't on the floor. I was up top, right in the middle, so I could see everything. So they turned the lights on, and that was just insane because you could just see everyone just going ape shit, like with, you know what I mean? Like with the lights on, it was like you're in a high school gymnasium. And what I really remember about that, too, is like Chino was really, really drunk, but he was on point, which is a rarity with him, like throughout the years. But you could tell he was really, really drunk, and he was kind of flamboyant, but he had a lot of good interaction with the crowd. Like he kept stage diving and shit, but
Cool.
that show blows me away. Like that was a really, really good show. Probably my favorite.
That's cool.
Probably. How about you, man? What's your best show?
You're going to give me one and throw it back at me?
Yep. Right.
So Cage at the Riv is just like one of those all-timers. Pearl Jam at Alpine Valley in 03, just insane. Same thing with like Pearl Jam, actually like 3 years ago in Milwaukee, 2 years ago. It's just like one of the coolest set lists ever. Roger Waters, out of all people, the last tour, Into the Flesh or whatever.
Okay.
Sick show. If you've never seen those guys live, man, it all adds up. Like it was like the like lights and like the pictures and everything, and the music sounded so good. For the only time, I've never seen this before. You know how they have like 2 stacks next to the stage for most concerts? They actually had one in the back of the venue at the top too. Okay. So you were getting all those ambient sounds from those albums as well. So when he would play something from Dark Side of the Moon and like you'd hear the laughter, it was coming from behind you. It was
cool.
Sick. Such an experience. There was one show in particular that was really cool. I saw Pearl Jam open up for Tom Petty in Milwaukee. That was a really cool show. I'm really grateful for that. And then like you talk about like the great moments of like seeing these bands. For me, the Aragon is that, because I saw some really cool shows. One of those shows, and it sucks now because they kind of like turned like bad. But Kings of Leon, like right before they got famous, with like Use Somebody and Sex on Fire.
Huh? Okay.
And it was Halloween. They all came out like as vampires. It was so sick, dude. And their music lends themselves to like the same thing with those Pumpkins, Melancholy, and the Infinite Sadness. Is like if it came out as a press release tomorrow on MTV that those dudes were actually vampires, you'd kind of believe it at that time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you would believe it. So they had that vibe to them. So that was great. And there's been a lot more, man. But just if you gave me one, so I can't give you 10. That's not fair.
You can keep. I'm gonna jump in now. Slayer at Ozfest '99 was really cool. What was awesome about that, the whole time they performed, they had a blow-up screen behind them, and it was actual footage of surgery on a human eyeball. So that sat with me forever because it was disgusting and it made me cringe the whole time. And then everyone, like, it was like those old Ozfest shows on the main stage, it was always on that incline. Remember that hill at, what's that place called? It's got a new name every year.
Now it's the Hollywood Casino Amphitheater, I think?
Yeah, that amphitheater.
Worst venue in Chicago.
It is.
By far.
It's garbage, but it's on an incline, and just like the mosh pits were just huge. They were crazy. And then another show, it's Cannibal Corpse. It was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre show at the Metro.
Oh, cool.
And I was a young kid, teenager, and that was my first experience, like with a mosh pit and everything. And it was like a circle pit. And that was a really, really good show. Like, I just remember that, as just forever. There was this dude, like, before it started, I was so young. He's like wrapping a chain around his hand. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm getting ready for the show. I'm like, all right. And like, they walk out, and he goes, look at this. And he just had like a handful of pills, and he ate them and chugged his beer. He's like, I'm ready now. I'm like, Jesus. Like, all right, I'm gonna get in there with that guy, I guess. Like
that's like, real. That shit's real, man.
Like when you're young and a kid, like
yeah.
But see the difference too. Like nowadays with the moshing and stuff, I don't do it as much because I'm older. But like back in the day, like when you fall down, they'd pick you up, and there was always like a circle pit. Like there was like mosh pit rules. Like nowadays, there isn't any rules. Like people throw, like the hardcore dancing and shit. They're throwing punches and spin kicks, and I don't want nothing to do with that.
Spin kicks.
Yeah, kids getting down. Shred, what's your favorite show? What's the best show? Come on.
The Cure at Lollapalooza was still,
you did
it's still
see The
my
Cure?
top. I did get to see them, and we waited, and we got real close. So as close as you can get to a Lollapalooza
that's
show.
all day. That means you're there all day, right?
I guess we got lucky. We didn't wait all day. I saw so many good bands that year.
Who else was on that bill, if you remember?
Mumford & Sons was the night before.
Yeah.
That same night.
The Killers was Friday. Was that the
Killers?
same one?
Yeah, they were awesome. The Killers were awesome.
Yeah.
Who else was out there? 9 Inch Nails, I think, was out that night.
Awesome.
It was them or The Cure.
Yeah,
And
two
then,
bands. Two bands I'd like to see would be The Cure and Nine Inch Nails. Remember you asked
think-
that I haven't those two for sure.
I also think Postal Service was their last show.
Postal Service played against Mumford and Sons,
Yeah.
Okay.
which I love that one album, but I don't know how much further you go into the Postal Service side of things.
It was good. I liked it, but it was repetitious. But then again, like that's the singer from Decemberists, right?
No,
No?
Death Cab for Cutie.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, Ben Gifford. They have 2 classics on that album.
Look at you dropping knowledge.
Well, they do, man.
I can't keep up.
Such Great Heights is a sick song.
It is a good song.
All right, Alan. Real quick though, hip hop wise, got to get into hip hop.
Oh, dude.
Hip hop live. Do you like hip hop at a live level?
Yeah, 100%.
Who did you see live that you really liked hip hop wise?
I wish I've seen more, man, because there's a lot of tours I wish I could have been on. But I could probably speak more from a studio perspective. Like from hip hop in particular, I've seen Kendrick, I've seen Snoop, I've seen pretty much anybody who's come around in the last 10 to 15 years because of Lala. So that's always kind of like done that for me. And I've seen Childish Gambino, I've seen the Cool Kids when they were cool. No pun intended on that one. But I would probably say like I probably would have seen like some Jay-Z at the height, like the Encore, the Black Album tour. I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen Kanye in one of these last couple because I saw him at Lolla too, and that was cool stuff. But from a production standpoint in arena, I bet you it was even better, you know. And I would have loved like you talk '90s, dude. Like one of my bucket list, A Tribe Called Quest is like that's it.
I love A Tribe Called Quest.
That's my favorite hip hop, and you know like I always get in shit with my friends, but like I'm one of those guys who's like Biggie all day, is like way above Tupac, and I know that's like that's sacrilegious for people. But for me, I'm a huge Biggie guy, man. So like that New York side of hip hop, I'm all for it.
How about Mobb Deep? Did you like Mobb Deep back in the day?
Not much.
I love Mobb Deep. How was Kendrick live?
Good, man. Good. You know, he was playing on a bigger stage, and like it was right after. So he had Good Kid, Mad City, but what was like it wasn't
To Pimp a Butterfly?
Yeah, it was right during that time period, and like like the things that I remind myself the most about it was. There was this kid in a wheelchair that was crowd surfing in it, and so it's like that's not even the music, you know. But like it was just sometimes it doesn't translate well with hip hop and live, and so you get a lot of percussion live, which is awesome. And Kendrick was at that point starting to play bigger crowds,
Yeah.
So like I don't think he just figured out how to like hype up a crowd of that size at that point. So it kind of fell a little bit short for me.
Okay. I love him. Like he's my favorite newer artist on a commercial level.
Unbelievable.
As far as hip hop goes, he keeps putting out really, really good content, album after album.
That most recent album, and what I love about him is like it's not like anything else you hear.
No,
he's
it's
not fitting any mold, man.
No, and it's nice to see something from the West Coast because it's been a while, you know. But
Yeah.
I agree with you live as far as hip hop goes. Outside, especially, it just doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Like with the percussion and the beat. Like if it's inside, it sounds a lot better. You know, I mean, I've seen Wu-Tang quite a few times inside. It was great. Immortal Technique, another artist. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but if you like conscious hip hop, I remember you told me you like conscious
it's my
hip hop.
favorite. Yeah.
You have to check out Immortal Technique, Revolutionary Volume 1, Revolutionary Volume 2. It's very, very political. Like my dream political music tour that would just like throw this country upside down would be Immortal Technique, System of a Down, and Rage Against the Machine.
All right.
If you could get those three together and, just play at some random place, like that could stir up a straight up revolution. And like we need those bands. We need System of a Down and we need Rage Against the Machine. I know I'm getting off topic here, but those two guys need to come. Like those two bands need to come back.
Does that exist right now?
Well, Tom Morello.
Yeah. Does that count? The Prophets of Rage? Does
No,
that
that
count?
does not count. And it's a shame too because I love Chuck D and I love Be Real.
Yeah, man.
But just be Rage Against the Machine. So yeah, man. We got to close it out one more time. Let everybody know where they can find you. On social media.
So from a
on your
social media
podcast.
perspective, like we said, man, I run that media company, Local 219, and it really stems from just kind of trying to put together the community, man, in a way that hasn't been done before. And you can find us at Local 219 on Facebook, Local_219 on Twitter, Local 219 on Instagram, and definitely be checking out for the new year, man. We just had that graffiti art video drop, and it's got, before we came out, I think it was around 6,000 views. So
Awesome.
Go check out all that stuff, man. We just launched the YouTube channel, and so big things coming, man. It's been fun, man. It's been crazy. Like the team's growing, the audience is growing. Businesses are really trying to meet up. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, man. Especially in like the next 3 to 6 months. So it's going to be pretty cool.
Awesome. I know I appreciate you coming through here on Musically Meditated. I think Shretton does too, don't you, Shret?
I do. I also want to compliment you on the way you're building your audience.
Well, how's
big,
that,
We're
man?
we're a big fan of the DIY, do it yourself, and just grind and let people see you and talk to you and meet you. And you do that. You represent your company very well.
Thanks,
so I
dude.
want to compliment you on that. And you guys are growing fast.
Cool,
So-
man. And
so
you,
it's
you're
cool.
on that grind. You're doing something similar.
Yeah,
so it's just
that's why
it's
we
interesting,
appreciate
yeah.
it. Yeah.
When I reached out to you, you're very kind, and I think it goes a long way if whatever type of media you're into, just everybody get together and promote each other, So
Yeah, man. I've got so much cool shit going on right now. I want to tell people what it is, but I just can't publicly, So it's like I know within 3 to 4 weeks these things are going to be out and it's going to be exciting, but like right now I wish I could tell more, man. But that's the essence of what we're doing. So
so everybody check out Alan's podcast. According to Alan is one of them.
yeah, and talk local.
And talk local. Subscribe, check them out. Thanks for coming, dude. Musically Meditated. Everybody have a good and safe New Year's. Adios. I'm Musically Meditated.
That's right.
I'm musically meditated. That's right. I'm musically meditated.